Live, this is Good Morning Texas.
Okay, guys, take a look. This animal's absolutely adorable, but there's things you need to know about approaching a service animal. We're going to go over all of the do's and don'ts coming up in just a second. A really important segment. Hi, good morning, everybody. If you're anything like me, dogs are such a big part of our lives. They're not only the most faithful companions. Studies show they can increase fitness, lower stress, improve happiness. I know all of this to be true for myself. And service dogs, though, do so much more. But as service dogs become more commonplace, so too have problems resulting from a lack of understanding from the general public. So this morning, we have invited service dog handler and attorney Jennifer C. Graff. She knows all of this firsthand, and she is here to help us understand service dog guidelines and etiquette. Good morning, and thank you for being here so much.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, we are thrilled to have you here. I've already learned so much in 5 minutes of discussing, and I thought I was a dog expert. I want to start with this. Is there a difference between a service animal and an emotional support animal?
Absolutely. A service animal has been trained to perform a task or work for the person with a disability, and the person with the disability is covered by the Americans with Disabilities Act. An emotional dog just helps the person by simply being there versus the person having a disability and the dog being trained for a task or to perform work for us.
You know, one of the first things I asked you when we were off camera, I said, this beautiful baby here, what is his or her name? Tell everyone at home your response, and this makes so much sense to me.
I always respond wheelchair, and that is because knowing her name will distract her, which takes her away from doing her job as my service dog. So knowing her name for a pet, it's wonderful to know their name because then you can distract them and you can play with them and you can pet them. But for a service dog, your goal is to not distract them, so not knowing their name is most helpful to people.
See?
So we just call her wheelchair.
And that makes absolute sense. So how can a person recognize a federal service dog? How do you know? Because when I see a dog on the streets, my first impulse is to ask to pet it.
Yes, and that's one of the most confusing things for people because there is no sign, there is no documentation, there is nothing that the dog is required by the Americans Disabilities Act to have. It's simply what the dog is doing for the handler because the handler is the one that is protected. So unfortunately, you don't know. If it's obvious, maybe somebody's blind that has a handle and you could tell by the way that they're walking that that dog is leading them, then it's obvious. In situations like me with an invisible disability, it's not obvious. And a customer is not allowed to ask. Somebody that's associated with the state or local government, they can ask, or a commercial entity or in public accommodations, they have the right to ask. But regular customers actually don't have the right to ask.
Can you tell me about wheelchair and what wheelchair does for you, your background in this, and how you got involved in really getting the word out and opening up this conversation?
Absolutely, and one of the questions that a business entity is allowed to ask is, do I have a federal disability? And I answer yes or no. I don't need to disclose what it is. And the other thing is exactly what you just asked. What task or work is the dog been trained to perform? In my situation, she's been trained to perform a ton of different things, but one example is when I get dizzy, one of my symptoms of my disability is I'll get dizzy. She will get in front of me so that if unfortunately I'm going to fall, I will fall on her. My previous service dog was fantastic at being trained if I was unable to drive, certain things were happening with my disability, it wasn't safe, she would take off her collar and sit there with a little low growl.
Oh, and they are just absolutely incredible. You know, we were talking about just kind of this works with the government. What about federal registries? Does that exist?
No, you'll see on my dog that it looks like there's a federal registry, and it is, but it's actually a private organization. There is no federal requirement for dogs to be registered. I, however, have mine with a private entity because customers and people in the public have a really hard time understanding that. So I have one, but it's absolutely, it doesn't exist. It's by private corporations.
How life-changing are these animals for individuals that need them in this way?
I could not state it more how life-changing. She allows me to be independent. She allows me to do things that I used to do before my disability. Service animals are so incredible, because even though we could have a spouse or a friend do certain things, maybe pick up something or help us drive us different places, we don't have to ask people anymore.
No.
So being independent, she allows me to be independent, which is the most life-changing thing I could have.
Real quickly, what would you tell to the dog lovers out there? What are the things they need to know if they see a dog that may be serving this purpose? What do you do? What do you not do?
Do not distract the dog. If you want to love on that person and be kind to that human that you're seeing that has obviously a disability, because I have now a neon sign that says to everybody, I have a disability, ignore her. When I see people that you can tell in their eyes they love a dog and they get excited, but they ignore us, that is the best thing you could possibly do for us so that we could be as normal and fit in society as possible.
I've been trying my best this morning. This is a beautiful angel down here. I cannot thank you enough for coming on here and really just shining a light on this. I have learned so much in our short conversation.
And thank you. I'm touched by you having us be here and educate your audience about the importance of not distracting service dogs.
It is our honor. It is our honor. Okay, Jane, I'm going to send it over to you.
Good stuff, Anna.